Hey everyone, this is More Than Just Trucks, a podcast for gearheads, truckers, and anyone who wants to learn more about the trucking industry. This podcast is sponsored by Truck Country and Stoops Freightliner. Come along with me as we dive deeper into what makes this $700 billion industry an essential part of all our lives. Here, we will interview industry leaders, educators, and more as we aim to inform the population on all things trucking. Hello and welcome to More Than Just Trucks podcast. I am your host, Ray Clark, and today we've got a topic, I think, of all topics for me anyways. With this industry, some of the changes that we keep seeing, we are going to talk about how to attract women into our industry. And like I said, I think this is a excellent time frame right now as we will go over some of the stats and stuff. But for the show, I have a couple people on here as guests, and I want to introduce them. So welcome to our show, Jay Goninen, the co-founder and president of WrenchWay. We've had a friendship and a partnership here for, it's been a few years, hasn't it, Jay?
It has, and I appreciate everything that Truck Country and Stoops does, and really being able to join in today and I think talk about a pretty important topic.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for being with us. And then we have our very own Jenny DeArmond, not to be confused with Jenny on the block, but Jenny is with our recruiting department. Welcome, Jenny. Hopefully you don't mind that little plug for you.
Nope, I love it. Thanks for having me.
All right. So, as you guys know, you guys are both kind of in that recruiting arena, right? And it's like the more and more myself and as a company, I think we see a few young ladies coming into the career path of a diesel technician, but it's still not there, is it?
I think we're, from what I've seen, and Jenny, I'll be curious to hear your insights here, but from what I've seen, it's starting to become more accepted, I believe, both from females, young females being able to look at it as a viable career and one that they can do, and not only do, but really excel at. But then the other side of that, and one that I think has come along slower than maybe I would have anticipated over the course of my career, is acceptance in the shops, right? And I think we've seen a really big shift with that over the past, 10, 15 years, whereas before it was pretty foreign to see a female in a shop, to where now it's just, it's another good tech in the shop, and it really doesn't matter what sex they are as long as they can do the job. And so that's really, I've seen a pretty awesome shift. I still think we're a long ways away from where we need to be at, but Jenny, I'm curious if you see the same or maybe see it differently.
No, absolutely. I see a huge shift. Again, I agree with you. We're kind of not where we need to be, but definitely heading in the right direction. So I'm anxious to see really what the next 2 to 3 years holds for the female world and the technician world.
So here's an interesting stat, right? So when you look at, and of course, Jay, I think you guys and even Jenny, we all look at those Bureau of Labor stats, right? So in our industry, employed as truck mechanics, 293,200 people. You guys want to take a guess at what the 21% of those were women?
I would go with 4%.
Jenny,
I was going to say less than 5%, but yeah, I would agree with Jay for sure.
Well, I hope you guys are both sitting down because it is 1%.
I think I had heard that before.
And that is so Women in Trucking Foundation, actually, of course, they do their own reporting and stats. They actually show 3.7% of women in the diesel tech field. So good guess for you guys in what you're seeing. But the other cool thing for me on the educational side and the training side of it, right, is I'm seeing more of the ladies come into the training program. Like you said, it's not to the pace that I would like to see. I even checked some stats and found some other schools and stuff, and WyoTech is showing an increase of enrollment now of 5 to 7% versus the 1 or 2% for enrollment. So we are seeing an increase. But like we said, right? I mean, it's just not there. And so what do you think it is? I'll point this one to Jay, because you kind of started with that a little bit, is why do so few of them pursue that diesel field? Is it like because they don't feel welcome into the world? What have you kind of heard out there in your paths?
I think it's still somewhat new, the concept or conceptually that a female can go into a shop and be successful, right? I think when you think of the diesel business, you think of big, heavy machines, right? Big, heavy parts, big, heavy everything. And at times, I still think there maybe isn't enough education of young people to understand that, hey, that young female has a real shot at this. And it's because most really good diesel shops have all of the equipment needed and all of the tools needed to be able to move all this heavy stuff around. It's not like it's not like my dad back in the day grabbing a 350 short block and throwing it into a car without a engine hoist or anything like that. There's a lot of tools made to, regardless of who you are or what your build is or anything like that, that makes it far easier than it was 30 years ago, right? Like there's just far more safety features on all of this equipment. I just think it's far more inclusive to anybody that wants to get into it. And hopefully that makes it feel a little less intimidating. Now, with that being said, what I think we need to do a better job at within the industry is to be able to go out and really show that off, right? Show that it's not as intimidating as you think. And Ray, you and I took a ride around in a truck, I don't know, probably a year ago now. And, just seeing a truck now compared to when I was in the trucking business, 15, 20 years ago, seeing the differences in how they drive, even to, go out and take one for a test drive, isn't nearly as intimidating as it was back in the day, right? So I think our industry has done an excellent job, and I give major kudos to the OEs, to the tool manufacturers, everybody that has made it a more accessible career to a lot of people, to where, now it's more focused on your mental capacity as much as the physical capacity of it. And I think that's going to open up a whole new world of technicians for us.
Yeah. And Jenny, I'm going to lean on you for, honestly, I think I know your experience level well enough to ask this. I hope I do. But I mean, you've been in the industry, truly the trucking industry, for quite some time. Yes, not in that capacity as a technician, but how did you feel, and what did you see? Even you've had the recruiting position in this industry for some time. I mean, where did you see or hear hurdles, or I guess obstacles or anything like that why women wouldn't want to pursue it? Has it always been that acceptance type mentality, or has it been more?
I think it's a little bit of things. I think Jay hit on it again, education. I don't think there is enough education out there or knowledge out there presented to young individuals about the transportation industry in general. So, knowledge is power type stuff. So I think that's a part of it. I think the other one is, being accepted in a shop. And then the third piece of that would be the safety issues as well. Brake drums, things like that, they're heavy. A lot of females may have that in the back of their mind that they can't lift those things. So they kind of put the doubt in their own mind before they ever give themselves the opportunity to prove differently.
Well, so two things, and Jenny, you're going to love this statement come out of my mouth, and not that I'm that kind of guy, but women are smarter. And I always teach and train everybody to work smarter, not harder. So with that said, exactly, right, they definitely are smarter and can handle more challenges. I think they multitask better than us men do by far. I've had some great female service advisors and service writers that they're rock stars, and they can multitask, and they can bring down a trucker in a hurry if he's very disgruntled or upset. But let's get back. So again, that mentality of big parts, big equipment, and all that. To both of you guys' points, for all the ladies that listen out there, there is a tool to do every job. You do not have to physically, push yourself to the limits. Now, I'm not saying that everything is going to be easy in our world, but I mean, like the brake drums, we have brake drum dollies. You name it, there's a tool on wheels or overhead crane or anything that if you're going to do something and it's beyond your capabilities, there's a tool that'll definitely help you in that.
Yes.
Yeah. So we face, several obstacles. So it's the acceptance into it, and Jay and Jenny, you guys both hit on that, right? That it's I don't want to call it a dog eat dog world out there, but right now, we're all hunting technicians like something awful, just getting somebody into the skilled labor force. And we don't, you guys have looked at the stats. If we don't look at right now, our average diesel techs are 40 years old, and we lack the youth. So we got to, not only in the youth in the male section of it, we got to look at how do we get the ladies into it, and what entices them. So Jenny, for you, what is it that, what can we do to let them know that this could be a career path for them, a very good career path. Pay is right now in our diesel industry across the board. I think pay is very exceptionally well for most everybody.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the big thing is going back to education. Just getting the word out there, what we can do. Women in Trucking does a fantastic job of their marketing strategies and campaigns and their social media in general. So, letting people know that there's not just technician jobs, that's obviously a huge one, but there's other jobs within transportation too. And not only that, but you can start off, as a technician and work your way up as well. So I think it all goes back to education and just letting people know what's out there.
Yeah. And Jay, you travel really a lot. You go across the state. So I think you're an East Coast to West Coast at times, right? Through a month at a time. Is there regional differences that you see or hear? Is it very consistent across the states?
Yeah, I think for the most part, it's fairly consistent. I would say I feel like the West Coast is probably a little bit ahead of the rest of the U.S. in this regard in terms of how aggressive they are at getting young techs. But I think when you look at it and you look at the opportunity that's out there, and the fact that there's only, depending on the stat, 1% to 4% of technicians of the total technician population are female, yet it's over 50% of the U.S. population, just blows my mind, right? Like how we've avoided this and really not paid attention to it for the entire existence of mechanics is really interesting to me, and something that I think it probably just wasn't universally accepted, like, 30, 40 years ago for sure. But even up until, say 10, 15 years ago, it really wasn't something that you looked at as maybe a viable career for a young female. With that being said, the game has changed now, and it is so much easier for a young female to come in. And I think one of the really cool things, and when Jenny talks about education, I think a lot of it is the visibility to see that, hey, there are actual females in these shops that are super, super successful, right? And I think the visibility to that alone helps so much, so that if maybe that shop that's out there can take their female technician that's just killing it and put them in a high school or even a tech school setting, and being able to talk to the students and, hey, you know what? There's a female out there that's doing a great job at this. And we've done a lot of content through the WrenchWay side around getting more females into the industry. And I think one of the coolest parts or aspects of it has been, even for myself, to see the number of wildly talented females that we have in this business. There's just, even our organization is led by, I think 2/3 of our leadership team is female, and it wasn't because we went out and said, "Oh, we're gonna go hire female. We're gonna go hire female." It was because they were just really talented, and that was always my, my mentality to hiring was that I just want to hire really good, talented people, regardless of age, race, sex, color. Like that doesn't matter to me. If they're really good at what they do, that should be the bottom line, right? And if they're good people and if they fit into your culture, and I think the visibility to show that there are some females in this industry that are really, really good at what they do. And the more we can put, some emphasis behind that, and we can show them off and say, hey, you know what? They're doing a great job at this, and you can too. We've got some people that are laying the groundwork now, which I don't think we had a decade ago.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give a shout out to the founder, one of the co-founders of Next Gen Trucking, as you know,
Yes.
Lindsay Trent. And I just had a board of director meeting the other day, and she's got some recognition out there with women in trucking. So to that point, it is you're right on spot with that. So one of the things I'm sitting here thinking about, a couple things really. I mean, like I said, Jay, Jenny, you guys both know me as we converse more, my mind kicks into overdrive, right? First of all, I know we've got I think she's a rock star, Courtney. She's out of our Hampshire, North Chicago dealership. And I'm definitely going to start a charge for our training departments to do more of a spotlight on those ladies and get it out there on our social media platform. But the second thing that just triggered in my mind was, like you said, to your point, Jenny, right? We got to get the education, the awareness out there. How do we get that out there? So the question on that is, when we get there to that point, is parents, because parents really come into play when it's this path of a young child, a young student, a young person's development career path, right? I know because my son is 17 and he's starting his career path. So I know how that is. We've been in front of him, we've been in front of a lot of classes and stuff and talked to counselors. Do you think parenting or parents, in a sense, may have some bumps in the road with some roadblocks really doing that too? I mean, there are parents out there that it's unfortunate that they want their child to have a degree behind them. So, God forbid, don't go into that skilled industry because you need a degree to get somewhere. And I kind of argue that point all the time. I use myself as reference, but do you guys think there's some logic behind that thought? I mean, could it be?
100%. Yes.
Yeah. And I would agree with Jenny there too, that yes, 100%. And I think, again, it's the visibility and the education of these parents, right? And maybe they grew up in an industry that's different than what it looks like right now. And so to kind of, for the diesel shops that are out there to pull the curtain back and show off who you are. Ray, I've been down to your facilities and am blown away every time, the cleanliness, the technology, just everything that goes into what you're doing on the training side is fascinating. And I think if you can get parents in that environment, and then you can get the students in that environment and show that it's not so intimidating. That's one thing I didn't mention before, but for not even just female techs, but young techs as a whole, or even veteran techs, I should just make it all inclusive, all techs.
Right.
A lot of our shops can be incredibly intimidating, right? You have all of these big trucks around everywhere, and typically around a pretty large dealership, and it can be an intimidating thing. I know, going back to when I was 22 years old and walking into a truck dealership, it's not the most comforting thing in the world, right? Just because you don't really know anybody, it's not all that comfortable of a process. I think there's maybe some aspects of the diesel business that maybe we could do a little bit better job of making it a little less intimidating, because we do work on some pretty cool stuff that's pretty big, and that can make it, from my experience, make it a little bit intimidating.
Yeah. So when you guys do, and you guys do both, I know Jay, maybe not so much career fairs, but I think you're out there in the environment enough. I mean, Jenny, what are you seeing when it comes to career fairs? I know, like I did some heavy recruiting in the years past, and I couldn't even put a percentage there, but it was really slim for the young ladies that I would see, like at the UTIs or it's even during some of the high school careers. Now, the recent ones that I've done locally has been a different story. I have seen more, but Jenny, through the years, what have you been seeing, or this recent year, what have you seen?
There's definitely more females that are enrolled in the programs. And I think that helps with the acceptance. And when they get into a dealership, they kind of have an idea of what they're up against. Not up against, I shouldn't say it that way, but kind of what the environment's going to be like. Being a female in what they used to call the man's world out in the shop. I think that kind of sets them up for what they're going to get into. But again, you may have 25, 30 males come up to your table and it only be 3 or 4 females that come up in that same group. So again, hopefully they keep enrolling and keep showing up, and hopefully we can keep getting them. So
Well, I think the good thing is on some of the appeal to get in there for the ladies that still want to be ladies. I have seen some really good colored toolboxes. They're not just a plain black or plain red. I've seen some pink tool sets out there, some really wild colors and stuff. So there's a plus side out there as far as that goes, right?
that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, so just kind of looking back, I think, so would you guys both agree that the number one thing that we as an industry and companies would have to do is probably the education, the awareness side of it, right?
Yeah, I would 100% agree with everything Jenny has said over the course of the podcast, and I don't think it's hard, right? That literally our entire platform is about that, is about showing off who you are, but doing it in a way that shows it that you're welcome here, right? Like we've got our doors open, and even enough to where you can just have a conversation with, say, that young lady that's looking to come into our industry and maybe not overly comfortable with it, or maybe her parents aren't overly accepting of her decision. I know I've talked with multiple young ladies that have come into both the automotive and diesel industries, and that's oftentimes one of their biggest concerns is what their parents think. And here's this smart young lady that's going to go into something that is perceived as being a grease monkey, and it's changed so much. And I think that's where even talking them through and navigating those types of conversations with their parents, when maybe the expectation is to go get a 4-year degree, but being able to lay out, hey, you know what? They're putting together a career path for me. They are going to send me to training. They're going to do all of these things, and plus I get paid for this and a pretty good wage. I think we can help those young people out and young ladies out in those conversations, and kind of almost be a resource for them, right? And go over and above just trying to recruit them into our specific shop, but really kind of extend the olive branch and be a source of knowledge for them, help them understand the industry, help them decide if it is a right fit for them. Maybe actually isn't a right fit for them. But really just being able to answer questions and talk to them, I think on top of the education is something we all need to focus on.
Yeah, and I think Jenny, you added to it where so I know we're kind of focused around the technician job role, right? But I think Jenny, you really even more so is we have some exceptionally very good employees in our company that I know of that are assistant service managers, that have been service advisors, service writers, parts people, saleswomen. I mean, like you said, it doesn't, to your point, Jay, it doesn't matter age, race, anything, right? I mean, if you know what you know and you're good at what you do, then you will, to me anyways, right? You're going to succeed. So I've seen some very knowledgeable ladies that sell trucks, in point blank, that's just because they know the vehicle. They know what they're talking about. It's not and that's the concept too, the same thing, right? That I don't want to get our shops filled with ladies, and then the trucking industry comes back and says, oh, my truck didn't get fixed. Yeah, you probably had that woman working on it. And it's like, I want to make sure that concept goes away too, because I think it's a bigger picture than just trying to get them into the industry. Retention is a huge, probably one of everybody's huge concerns, keeping everybody working. But I think that same thing with that whole, it's a man's world mentality out there. I mean, that's going to be a hard one to break down, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we've got to get over it, right? Like, I think
exactly
what a lot of us have grown up with, and what our preconceived notions were just based on what we were taught growing up, was that maybe a shop isn't a place for a female, and it's not correct anymore. And I think one really satisfying thing to me, and what I've seen a lot in recent years, is how accepting the older male technicians have been of females coming into the shop. And I don't think it has always been that way, but that is one thing that kudos to all those techs that are out there right now, because I think that's changed dramatically. Not just, having somebody come in and say, well, they're not going to cut it, whether it's a young female or male, really. But now being a little bit more willing to help, willing to answer questions. I think maybe the culture in shops is starting to shift away from, well, I learned it the hard way, you're going to learn it the hard way, type of mentality, which I don't think is very, very attractive for a young female coming into the industry to learn the hard way, right? Because I had to learn the hard way.
I was going to say,
I think that's
hard enough as a
change.
legal tech.
Oh, it is. And I think for our industry, the healthier we can make this industry, the better that culture is, and the more accepting it is, because that, at the end of the day, that's what we need. We need more technicians in this industry. Females are an excellent pipeline of technicians, and pardon my French, but damn good technicians. I've had quite a few that have worked for me over the years, and I've had some just outstanding female technicians. And once they get in and kind of prove themselves, it kind of changes the dynamic. And I almost feel like in a shop, you get that one female in that can show that, hey, you know what, we can kick butt too. And once you get that one, then it kind of just changes the whole. It's a shift once you get the one. And I think that's just a really important thing for shops to consider.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, man, I just, it just boggles me when we look at that, because of that whole thing, right? That the concept. But I'll agree with you. I think the older generation techs, the senior guys, so hats, like you said, hats off to them. Congrats to them, however you want to put it. But they are doing better at, hey, go learn that for yourself. I had to. That mentality really is going away, and I'm seeing more and more senior technicians become coaches and wanting to share that information, that knowledge with others. And like I said, we've got a young female in our group program right now going through the truck country side, and she's one of those that she's got some pretty broad shoulders on her. She puts up with the guys put up with her. What's dished out is received and passed back. So let's recap, right? I think we all agree that the number one thing is awareness. And where does that start up, right? Starts with parenting, probably even back. So I've had this concept, and I think Jay, you and I have spoke about it. Maybe Jenny has had conversation. People kind of thought one of our recruiters out of truck country and I, Roger Skemp, went to a 6th grade class to recruit one time. And they thought we were nuts because we went that young and that early. What do you guys think of that?
I think it's necessary right now. I really do. I think you're planting the seed for one, like you think about it, if you start in 6th grade that means you've got 7 years to build a relationship with that person. And even though it doesn't seem like it, 7 years flies by. And so if you're working
Yes.
with them and they know who you are for 7 years, you can't tell me that doesn't increase your chances at getting good people into your program. So I think I've told you this from the start, Ray. I love the fact that you're doing that, and I think we need to do more of it as an industry. So I applaud you for it. I think it's extremely smart, and I hope we continue to do that because I think it's such a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a lot of people were like, "Oh, yeah, but geez, they're too young. They're not going to make a decision yet." And I'm like, "But that's not the point. The point, like you said, is to plant the seed and keep revisiting that seed. I mean, you don't just, I mean, farmers, right? You just don't plant a crop and walk away from it. There's some maintenance that you have to do. So, in order for our industry to grow, I think we, and I'll use the term as farmers, need to maintain our crops. And I think over the years, we've kind of planted the seed. Yep, that's good. Our shops are full. Don't need any techs. They're coming in. They're following. Kids aren't even following generational type skill sets anymore. My son, still up in the air, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to be a tech or what, but again, I think a lot of changes through the years. You guys have seen it as myself. So education awareness, getting in front of them, getting in front of the parents. Really, I think, like I said, as far as pay wise goes, I mean, I don't care who you are. If you come through the door and you do your job well, your pay usually matches those skill sets.
Oh,
So
that's what I've said too, Ray, with our entire group is it just come in and do great at what you do, and that kind of that paints the path for you, right? Regardless of what your background is, if you come in and you're really, really good at what you do, there's always going to be a spot for you here. And I think as shops, you're smart to think that way. And really, if you don't, I think you're discounting so many people that could really add a lot to your companies. And so I just wanted to echo that because I think you hit it right on the head there, Ray.
And let's flip that a little bit though. As you know, some of the techs come in and they really, for those, again, don't take this the wrong way, but for those that think they know it, don't ever think you know it really, because this is an evolving industry. But to our point, just come in and work your backside off and do what you do best. And if that's fix trucks, if that's diagnose trucks, heck, I'm a general technician, but I do it really well, then you do it and you will succeed. I can guarantee anybody out there listening that whether it's a technician side, whether you work for Jay, whether you work for a manufacturing job, do your job and do it well, and you will reap those benefits. Most employers will see that. So let's wrap things up. Changes. So I think, like I said, Jenny, you kept beating it up, and that was great because I think that is the point really, is the education, the awareness. So with you guys, what's the intent for you guys? I mean, Jay, you've gotten more podcasts, you've gotten more episodes, you've done a bunch of different things. Jenny, do you see, our company doing more women only type things, or at least highlighting that more? What are both of you guys, where do we go from here to try to keep pushing this movement a little bit?
I think you have to push all those things again, back to, again, education. And then, at the company level, continuing to highlight the females that are doing well, and get them out, whether it be on social media or going to career fairs and things like that as well, highlighting them, letting others know how well they're doing.
Yeah, and I just again echo what Jenny says. I think finding females that are in the industry that are good at what they do and are passionate about it. I think finding those folks and being able to get them to talk about their journeys and being able to, be a mentor to young females coming into the industry. I know one of the things that we do is we just had Techmission and talk about women in the industry. And this is kind of interesting because as a male that has had quite a few female techs work for me over the years, one of the things that I never thought about, and it came up in multiple roundtables that we've done, is making it a more accessible place or a more welcoming place to females. Does mean some maybe facility changes, right? We had a couple female techs talk about how nice it would be to have a female-only locker room so that they didn't have to go to the bathroom to change, or maybe it's finding uniforms that actually fit them so they don't have to try and fit into a man's uniform, right? I think there's just so many things when you put yourself in the shoes of a female tech that kind of changes the game, right? And you talked about, maybe some different colored toolboxes to be more accommodating to what their interests and likes are. But I think one thing that has just resonated with me is really being able to put yourself in a female tech's shoes and walk in them for a day, right? And understand, what are they going to go through? Is it weird that they have to go into the women's bathroom rather than a locker room? Those kind of things that might be perceived as not being accommodating, I think are ways that shops can really sit down and look at this and be like, hey, you know what? We can do better at this. Like, there's some different things we can do to plan out and make it more welcoming for female technicians. And so it's opened my eyes just by having these conversations.
I know back we were putting up our new facility in Dubuque back in I believe 2015. We actually did that, Jay, and we've carried that momentum out as far as having our own female locker room for female technician stuff. So I was really glad to see that. And to your point, they were happy that they had their own locker room. Very much.
That's incredible. That's great to hear. I absolutely love to hear that.
Wrapping things up, thank you both for your time. Definitely, you guys know me well enough. I will keep that drive and the push going to keep audiences aware, whether it's podcasts, whether it's social media, or whether it's just coming into the training center and chatting with me. Jay, Jenny, you know me. I don't. I'll make time for about anybody, and it's after hours, Saturdays, weekends, doesn't matter, as long as I guess I get to talk about the industry. I'm good with that.
Yeah, and we appreciate that, Ray. I think you're doing a lot of good for the industry, and just having conversations like this, I think even for myself to be able to open my eyes to maybe the way that Jenny sees it or the way that you see it, I think it does help a lot in these conversations just to spark ideas of ways that people can do things differently. And so I applaud you for doing the podcast, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah, not a problem. Yes, Jenny, thank you for your time. I know you're a very busy lady yourself within the industry and with us. So thank you for all your efforts, both recruiting and everything that you do for us on that side. And Jay, same thing. Thanks for pushing our numbers and doing what you can on your side in the industry. And thank you to our listeners. Today's show, More Than Just Trucks, sponsored by Truck Country and Stoops Freightliner.
Bye.